Commander Varix P. Thorian stared at the intelligence report, his four eyes blinking in synchronized confusion. The data couldn't be right. It just couldn't. "Run this by me again," he said to Intelligence Officer Milik. "These human retirees are what exactly?" Milik fluttered her sensory appendages nervously. "That's just it, Commander. We're not entirely sure. Our translation matrices kept throwing errors until we cross-referenced with historical combat data." Varix drummed his claws on the metallic surface of his command console. The hegemony had encountered many species in its 15,000-year expansion, but none quite as baffling as humans. Just when you thought you understood them, they'd reveal some new, often terrifying, cultural quirk. "So they're discarded warriors?" he asked. "Not exactly, sir. They call it retirement. It appears to be a reward system. After approximately 2 to 4 decades of military service, they receive financial compensation and are relieved of duty." Varix snorted. "That sounds inefficient. Why not use them until they expire? Or at least until combat prowess diminishes?" "That's the thing, sir." Milik's voice dropped to a near whisper. "Their prowess doesn't diminish, at least not significantly. Based on our analysis, many of these retired humans are still at peak physical and tactical capability. Some even improve after leaving official service." "That makes absolutely no sense." Varix slammed a fist down, causing his aide to flinch. "Why would any military force willingly discard effective warriors?" "We believe it may be psychological, sir. Humans have peculiar concepts like work-life balance and enjoying their golden years." Varix struggled to comprehend such foreign concepts. In the hegemony, one served until death or severe incapacitation. Anything else was wasteful. "How many of these retirees exist?" he asked. Milik hesitated. Conservative estimates put the number at approximately 47 million across Earth's various military branches. Varix felt his blood run cold. 47 million combat-trained humans just wandering around? Doing what? Fishing, apparently. Also gardening, woodworking, playing with small humans, consuming fermented beverages, and complaining about their joints. The commander leaned back in his gravity-adjusted seat, processing this information. What happens if they're threatened? Or if their territories are invaded? Milik's color shifted slightly, indicating discomfort. "That's where our recent intel becomes concerning, sir. It seems these retirees operate under different rules of engagement than active military personnel." "Different how?" "Active human military forces operate under strict protocols, requiring authorization for lethal force, adhering to their Geneva Conventions, rules of engagement, written chain of command. Retirees appear to be unrestricted." Varix blinked rapidly. "You're telling me Earth maintains a reserve force of 47 million trained killers who don't need permission to engage?" "That's our current understanding, yes. And they're not considered a reserve force. That's a separate designation in human military structure." The commander stood abruptly, pacing the bridge of his ship. "This changes our invasion calculus entirely. We projected resistance from active military, law enforcement, and perhaps some civilian resistance. But 47 million unrestricted combat veterans. That's problematic," offered Milik. "Catastrophic." Varix corrected. "Show me the Proxima Colony incident." "That's what triggered this intelligence review, correct?" Milik nodded and activated the holo display. The three-dimensional projection showed a small hegemony outpost on Proxima Centauri b, the closest human-adjacent colony world. 3 solar cycles ago, a human settlement was established approximately 200 kilometers from our research station. Initially, we classified it as non-military. Analysis suggested it was populated primarily by older humans engaging in agricultural activities. The display zoomed in on a collection of simple structures surrounded by cultivated land. Then our xenobiologists decided to abduct several humans for standard physiological study, Milik continued. Standard procedure, Varix nodded. What went wrong? This. The display shifted to security footage from within the research station. The timestamp indicated 3:27 local time. The footage showed nothing unusual at first, just empty corridors and laboratories. Then, suddenly, exterior sensors went dark. One by one, internal systems began failing. Not catastrophically, but precisely, as if surgically disconnected. Then came the humans. There were only 4 of them. They moved with a precision that Varix recognized immediately as military training. But these weren't young warriors in their prime. These humans had gray hair, wrinkled skin, and in one case, a clearly artificial limb. These are the retirees? Varix asked. Yes, Commander. Average age, approximately 67 Earth years. Varix watched in horrified fascination as the 4 elderly humans systematically neutralized a security team of 12 hegemony soldiers. Their movements were economical, decisive, and lethal. There was no hesitation, no attempt at capture or negotiation, just elimination. Why aren't they in uniform? Varix asked. How do they coordinate without communication devices? They are communicating, sir. Our audio analysis detected subvocalized exchanges. As for uniforms, Milik seemed uncomfortable. They don't need them anymore. That's part of retirement, apparently. The footage continued, showing the humans locating and retrieving their abducted compatriots with surgical precision. On their way out, they placed small devices throughout the facility. Explosive charges? Varix guessed. Yes, but highly sophisticated. They only targeted data storage, specimen containment, and propulsion systems. The humans ensured personnel had time to evacuate before detonation. They showed mercy? This surprised Varix. Not exactly, sir. One of them left this message. Milik enhanced the audio from the security feed. A gruff human voice echoed through the command center. Next time you take our people, we won't give you time to run. This was a courtesy call. There won't be another. Varix felt his scales tighten against his body, an involuntary stress response. These are supposedly non-military personnel, engaged in what was it again? Farming, sir. They were growing a plant called lavender and keeping small fuzzy insects called bees. And they just happened to possess military-grade weapons, infiltration skills, and demolition expertise. That's correct, sir. According to their identification records, they were James Thompson, former Marine Force Recon, retired 15 years. Olivia Patel, former Naval Intelligence, retired 8 years. Marcus Jackson, former Special Forces Medical Specialist, retired 20 years. And Esther Rivera, former Air Force Drone Program and Tactical Systems, retired 12 years. Varix continued watching as the humans efficiently exfiltrated with their rescued companions. Their movements displayed none of the stiffness or hesitation one might expect from older organisms. If anything, they moved with the confidence of predators who had nothing to prove. What happened after this? That's where it gets interesting, sir, Milik replied. Human diplomatic channels sent a formal apology for the regrettable incident and offered compensation for damages. They classified it as independent action by private citizens and reminded us that these individuals weren't acting under military orders. Not under orders, Varix repeated slowly, the implications becoming clear. So they maintain plausible deniability while their retired warriors operate without restrictions. Precisely, Commander, and there's more. Our intelligence suggests this wasn't an isolated incident. Across human expansion territory, there are settlements of these retirees. They call them veteran communities or military retirement colonies. Varix sank back into his command chair. They're establishing perimeter defenses, not with military bases, but with communities of unrestricted killers who can act without official sanction. That appears to be the case, yes. The commander stared at the frozen image of the four elderly humans. They didn't look imposing. One was actually quite small, with round facial features that on any hegemony world would indicate youth and harmlessness. Yet they had neutralized an entire research station without casualties on their side. This changes everything about the invasion plan, Varric said finally. We can't just target military installations and government centers. Every human settlement could contain dozens or hundreds of these retirees. There's something else, Commander. Milik seemed reluctant to continue. What now? Do they also train their young to be killers? Wait, don't answer that. I already know they do. No, sir. It's about the translation of retirement. We've been analyzing human communication patterns, and there's a linguistic nuance we missed initially. Milik brought up a new display showing human communication intercepts. When humans discuss military retirement, they often use phrases like did my time, served my sentence, or paid my dues. Their language equates military service with punishment or obligation. That tracks with what we know of their forced conscription practices, Varric noted. That's just it, sir. Most of these humans weren't conscripted. They volunteered. And yet they still refer to their service as a period of restriction. Varric felt his stomach sink. Restriction from what, exactly? From what we can determine, Milik seemed to struggle with the concept, from acting according to their full capabilities and inclinations. Their military codes, rules of engagement, and command structures all limit what they're permitted to do. And retirement removes those limits, Varric finished, the horrifying truth dawning on him. It doesn't mean they're too old to fight. It means they no longer need permission to kill. Correct, Commander. Varric stared at the image of the four unassuming elderly humans who had so efficiently infiltrated a secured hegemony facility. He thought about the 47 million more like them scattered across Earth and its colonies. Send a priority communique to High Command, he said finally. Recommend immediate reevaluation of the Earth invasion strategy. And he hesitated, aware of how this would sound to his superiors, suggest consideration of a non-aggression treaty instead. Milik's eyes widened in surprise. Sir? The hegemony doesn't form treaties with pre-stellar civilizations. The hegemony has never encountered a pre-stellar civilization with 47 million unrestricted killers who consider our most advanced security systems to be, apparently, a post-retirement hobby. Commander Varric took one last look at the human retirees on the screen, noting with particular discomfort how the oldest one, the one designated Marcus Jackson, had smiled directly at the security camera before disabling it. And mark this intelligence brief with the highest security classification, Varric added. If other commanders proceed with invasion plans without this context, they'd be slaughtered, Milik finished. No, Varric corrected grimly. They'd be given a courtesy call. And there won't be another. Outside the command center, Lieutenant Kraz waited nervously for his meeting with the commander. He had been assigned to lead the first wave of the Earth invasion, a prestigious assignment that would surely fast-track his career. He'd studied human military capabilities extensively and had developed what he believed to be a foolproof strategy. Little did he know that in moments, he would learn about humanity's most terrifying secret weapon. Retirees with nothing to lose and a lifetime of combat skills just waiting for an excuse to show the galaxy why you should never interrupt a human's fishing trip. 3 solar cycles later, Lieutenant Kraz found himself in a situation no hegemony military academy had ever prepared him for, sitting across a wooden table from an elderly human female who was pouring him something called lemonade while discussing the terms of his unconditional surrender. Sugar? She asked pleasantly, holding up a small ceramic container. Kraz's translator glitched momentarily before clarifying that she was offering a flavor enhancer, not negotiating additional terms. No thank you, he managed to say, his mandibles clicking nervously. The human female who had introduced herself as Diana Frost, retired Admiral, United Earth Fleet, smiled with disconcerting warmth. Suit yourself. Though I find it helps cut the tartness. Behind her, through large transparent panels the humans called windows, Kraz could see the smoking remains of his invasion force. 3 capital ships and 14 support vessels, representing the most formidable battle group in the hegemony's 7th Fleet, now littered the landscape of this seemingly backwater colony world. The most infuriating part? None of his forces had been defeated by Earth's official military. No, they'd been systematically dismantled by what the humans casually referred to as the New Horizon Retirement Community. Let's recap the situation, shall we? Admiral Frost said, sipping her beverage. Your fleet entered our space without authorization. You bypassed our early warning systems quite cleverly, I might add, and positioned yourself for a surprise attack on what you believe to be a vulnerable agricultural settlement. Kraz shifted uncomfortably. The chair wasn't designed for his physiology, another small humiliation to add to the growing list. What I'm curious about, she continued, is why your commanders ignored the intelligence briefing from Commander Varix. It was quite thorough. Kraz's blood ran cold. How do you know about that report? The Admiral's smile turned predatory. Oh, we have our ways. Actually, Hank used to work in signals intelligence before he retired. These days, he mostly tends to his tomato plants and monitors interstellar communications for fun. Picked up your encrypted transmissions about 3 cycles ago and thought they might be important. She gestured toward an ancient-looking human male tending to plants in a soil bed nearby. The human waved cheerfully, his other hand holding a primitive cutting tool. That's impossible, Kraz sputtered. Our encryption is outdated, a new voice interrupted. Another elderly human entered the room, this one with artificial optical enhancements and silver hair pulled back into a tight configuration. Your quantum shift protocols haven't been updated in what, 40 years? We cracked those back when I was still on active duty. Name's Alan Zhao, by the way. Used to head up the advanced cryptography division before I retired to grow prize-winning orchids. Kraz felt a growing sense of dread. How many of you are there? In this community? Admiral Frost glanced around. About 400. Mostly fleet and intelligence types, with a smattering of Marines and Special Forces. The next settlement over has more ground combat veterans. They're the ones who disabled your ground forces when you made the unfortunate decision to deploy them. Alan placed a small device on the table. We've prepared a data packet for your high command. It includes a detailed analysis of why your invasion failed, along with our terms for the release of your surviving personnel. Kraz stared at the device. You're giving us strategic information? Why would you help us understand our failures? Admiral Frost and Alan exchanged amused glances. It's not help, Lieutenant, Frost explained patiently. It's a warning. We want your leadership to fully comprehend what they're dealing with. Specifically, that every human colony, no matter how small or seemingly defenseless, contains individuals who have spent decades perfecting the art of war before deciding to pursue more peaceful hobbies. Like my orchids, Alan added with a grin. Or my prize-winning jams and jellies, called out a weathered human female from another room, who then entered carrying a tray of colorful containers. Grace Wong, former demolitions specialist. My raspberry preserves won the colony fair last season. Kraz looked at the innocent-looking food items with suspicion. Oh, they're not poisoned, Grace laughed, noting his expression. If I wanted to kill you, you'd never see it coming. Try the raspberry, it pairs well with surrender negotiations. The casualness with which these humans discussed lethal capabilities while engaging in mundane domestic activities was deeply unsettling to Kraz. In hegemony culture, warriors were warriors. They lived in military facilities, trained constantly, and focused exclusively on combat readiness. The concept of a killer who also made preserves was cognitive dissonance of the highest order. Your invasion plan wasn't half bad, by the way, another human commented, entering from outside. This one moved with a slight limp and had extensive scarring visible on exposed skin. I'm Joe Tanaka, former Tactical Planning Division. Your approach vector was innovative, and your electronic warfare suite actually gave us a few minutes of trouble. 3 minutes and 42 seconds, Alan corrected. Would have been longer if Martina hadn't recognized the pattern from that skirmish in the Tau Ceti system 30 years ago. Joe nodded. True. Martina sends her regards, by the way. She wanted to be here, but she's helping rebuild the hydroponic system your strafing run damaged. Priorities, you know. Kraz struggled to process what was happening. These weren't formal military negotiations. This felt more like a social gathering. These humans were treating his failed invasion as if it were some kind of minor inconvenience in their day, somewhere between gardening and dinner preparations. I don't understand, he finally admitted. If you have these capabilities, why aren't you serving in your military? Why are the most dangerous humans apparently growing plants and making sweet food items? The room fell silent for a moment, and the humans exchanged looks that Kraz couldn't interpret. That's a fair question, Admiral Frost said eventually. Tell me, Lieutenant, how long have you been in service? 17 cycles, Kraz answered automatically. And how many more do you expect to serve? Until death or critical injury, of course. Admiral Frost nodded thoughtfully. That's the fundamental difference, you see. Humans recognized long ago that a lifetime of war damages the spirit. We serve our time usually 20 to 30 years, and then we step away, allowing the next generation to take over. We find new purposes, new joys. But you clearly maintain your skills, Kraz observed. Some skills never leave you, Joe said with a shrug. And we'd be fools not to stay sharp with the galaxy being what it is. But there's a difference between maintaining readiness and living solely for conflict. Grace set down her tray of preserves and fixed Kraz with a piercing stare. I spent 28 years calculating the precise explosive force needed to turn enemies into component atoms. Now I calculate the precise amount of pectin needed for perfect jam consistency. Both require attention to detail, but only one lets me sleep peacefully at night. The jam, to be clear, Alan added helpfully. Kraz found himself struggling with an alien concept. You're saying that retirement makes you more effective warriors? Not less? Not exactly, Admiral Frost corrected. It makes us whole people who can also be effective warriors when necessary. There's a distinction. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the windows, Kraz could see several humans leading a group of captured hegemony officers toward another building. Ah, those would be your surviving bridge officers, Joe explained. Don't worry, they're being well treated. Thomas is probably boring them with stories about his grandchildren right now. Before he retired, he was our top interrogation specialist. Now he just talks people to death naturally. We've set up adequate accommodations for your crew, Admiral Frost continued. Your wounded are receiving medical attention from Dr. Keller. She was chief of xenobiology at Earth Fleet Medical before she retired to study our local flora. Fortunately for your people, the anatomical principles aren't dissimilar. Kraz watched as his once proud officers were led away by humans who looked like they should be physically incapable of such a feat. None of this makes sense, he muttered. War rarely does, Admiral Frost replied softly. But perhaps there's a lesson here for the hegemony. Our official forces would have detected your approach sooner, engaged according to established protocols, followed rules of engagement. There would have been diplomatic warnings, escalation procedures, oversight committees. Instead, you got us, Alan said with a chuckle. Retirees who spotted your approach during our regular monitoring made a quick consensus decision over breakfast and implemented a defense plan before lunch. The hegemony doesn't understand this concept of retirement, Kraz admitted. Commander Varix tried to explain it, but High Command dismissed his concerns as exaggeration. An expensive mistake, Grace noted, looking out at the wreckage. But a survivable one, Admiral Frost added. This time. That's the other part of our message to your leadership, Lieutenant. This was a measured response from a small retirement community with limited resources. But imagine what would happen if you provoked a response from multiple communities, or worse, forced our formal military to activate the Reserve Corps. Kraz didn't want to imagine it. The visions his mind conjured were disturbing enough. The Reserve Corps is different from retirees, correct? He asked, trying to understand the human military structure. Oh yes, Joe replied with a laugh. Reserves are still under command structure and protocols. Retirees like us? We're just private citizens defending our homes using skills we happened to acquire during our previous careers. Big difference, legally speaking. Very convenient distinction, Kraz noted dryly. Isn't it? Admiral Frost smiled. Now, about those terms. We're prepared to release your personnel and even help with basic repairs to your least damaged vessel. Enough to limp home, at least. Why would you help us at all? Kraz couldn't hide his suspicion. Because we want you to get home safely, Grace said, her expression sincere, with our data packet and first-hand accounts of exactly what happened here. We're not monsters, Lieutenant, Admiral Frost added. We're gardeners and jam makers and grandparents who happen to remember how to disable quantum shields and target propulsion systems. We'd much rather exchange recipes than weapons fire. Alan leaned forward. The data packet also contains suggested protocols for peaceful contact in the future. Trade possibilities, cultural exchange opportunities, that sort of thing. Much more pleasant for everyone involved. Kraz looked around at these strange, contradictory beings. Warriors who rejected war. Killers who preferred peace. Elderly individuals who could disable a battle fleet between breakfast and lunch. I will convey your terms to what remains of our command structure, he said finally. Excellent, Admiral Frost beamed. Now, would you like to try some of Grace's raspberry preserves while we discuss the details? I promise they're quite good. 6 solar cycles later, Commander Varix P. Thorian stood before the Hegemony High Command, feeling a complex mixture of vindication and dread. His intelligence report had been proven correct in the most dramatic fashion possible, but at tremendous cost. So these retirees not only defeated a full battle group, Supreme Commander Zithkar summarized, but then provided detailed analysis of how they did it, repaired one of our vessels, and sent our personnel home with preserved fruit products. Correct, Supreme Commander Varix confirmed. They call it jam. I'm told the raspberry variety was particularly well received. A murmur ran through the assembled commanders. The concept was so foreign to hegemony thinking that many were still struggling to process it. And you believe their analysis and proposed diplomatic framework is genuine? Not some elaborate trap. Varix had spent days reviewing the human data packet. Their analysis of our tactical weaknesses is accurate and comprehensive. They could have destroyed all our forces but chose restraint. The proposed diplomatic framework appears designed for mutual benefit. Supreme Commander Zithkar leaned back, his aged scales reflecting the chamber's harsh lighting. In 15,000 cycles of hegemony expansion, we have never encountered a species that could defeat us militarily and then offer us pastry ingredients. Reserves, sir, Varix corrected automatically, then winced at his temerity. Surprisingly, Zithkar made a sound approximating laughter. Indeed, preserves. Perhaps there is wisdom in this human concept of retirement that we have failed to appreciate. A warrior who chooses when and how to fight is evidently more formidable than one who merely follows orders. What are your recommendations, Commander? Another High Command member asked. Varix straightened. I recommend immediate ratification of the non-aggression treaty as outlined in the human proposal, followed by cautious cultural and technological exchange. And He hesitated briefly. I suggest we explore implementing our own version of this retirement concept. The strategic advantages are compelling. Supreme Commander Zithkar's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You wish to retire, Commander Varix? Not immediately, Supreme Commander. But someday, yes. I find myself increasingly curious about these gardens the humans speak of so fondly. As the chamber erupted in shocked discussion, Varix reflected on Lieutenant Kraz's detailed report of his time with the human retirees. One passage in particular had resonated with him. The most terrifying aspect of humans isn't their technology or even their combat skills. It's that their most dangerous warriors have discovered something they value more than war and will fight with unprecedented ferocity to protect their right to pursue it. They don't fear death in battle. They fear dying before experiencing everything life has to offer beyond battle.